This next video you're about to see is a presentation I gave for Search Engine Marketing New England, SEMNE. In it I share tips and strategies using a whole lot of different SEO tools across 7 categories. My hope during this talk was that every person came away with one new tool or one new way to use a tool that they had never seen before. The audience did have a big range of experience, so the tools start a little basic, but they do get a lot more advanced as I go through the talk. Each category is going to be time-stamped below, and I've also linked to the slides and to some of the tools and resources that I mentioned during the talk. By the way, this was technically a SEMNE event, but it was hosted by a company called TechTarget in Newton, Mass. So some of their SEO team is sitting in the front row, and that's why a lot of things I talk about have to do with the TechTarget.com website. I hope you like this. It is long. Feel free to bookmark it and save it for later and watch it in pieces. There is a Q&A at the end. The presentation begins with a quick story about how I grew blog traffic for a certain site 20x and why that inspired me to use a lot of different SEO tools. Okay, I hope you like it. So tonight I am going to talk about SEO tools, but I wanted to begin with a quick story of something that happened in 2015. I got a call from a guy by the name of Noah Kagan. Have you heard of Noah Kagan? He runs Sumo.com, AppSumo, worked at Facebook, and he said, we need to grow our blog traffic, and we need to do it fast. And he connected me with one of their head writers, and he said, you have 2 days to come back with ideas for how we're going to grow our traffic. And I have the picture of the taco up here because he really likes tacos. So I thought I could either bribe him with a taco or I could get to work and figure out how to get him ideas in 2 days. And of course, as you might know, like if you're a consultant, I had other work. Like this was not my only thing. I was not putting it aside just to work for Noah. So I had a couple hours, and it was in this moment that I really discovered the power that a tool could have to help lead towards a strategy that helps grow traffic. And I'm going to tell you about that exact strategy a little bit later that I used with Noah, but this is the result. Now, this is actually their traffic. I had to cut out the numbers, but the strategy that resulted in having to very quickly come up with ideas to grow their traffic led to, I think it was about a 20x growth in their blog traffic through 2016. And so, like I said, that's really when I realized the power that a tool could have to help with strategy. So I do have one goal for this talk, and I'm going to talk about a lot of tools, and you might know some of them, you might know some of them, you might know some of them, but my hope is that for every one person in here, you come away with one new tool or one new way to use a tool that you've never thought of before, and then you can put that into use. And of course, that was supposed to be funny. I didn't time the slide right. I'm going to talk about tools in 7 categories, and I'm going to reveal those one by one as we go through them. But first, a disclaimer. I want to urge everyone in here, so like there's a question that I get all of the time from clients or new potential clients, and I'll tell you that question in a second, but when you're using SEO tools, I think it's everyone's responsibility to try to understand the metrics and the data and where they're getting their data. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna be led astray. And so the example is domain authority. Who's heard of domain authority from Moz? It's a Moz metric. So one of the biggest questions I get is, hey, Dan, our domain authority dropped from 34 to 32 in 1 month. Oh no, what do we do? And if you don't understand domain authority, that might scare you. But the fact is Moz, their domain authority is their own metric that every month when they recalibrate their index, it's going to artificially change a little bit. But if you don't know that, you're going to think something's wrong with your site, you're going to think you're losing links. That could dictate your entire strategy in the wrong direction. So that's one example. And the other example of a metric, just to give a quick example before we get into the tools, is average position in Search Console. So average position in Search Console, a lot of people think that's the same thing as a ranking, but it's actually not. It's literally the average of all of your positions, where you showed up in reality. versus a rank tracker, which is checking like the same thing day after day, and it's a much more consistent thing. So just a little warning, disclaimer, when you're using tools, it's really up to everyone to try to understand the metrics behind them. Okay, so I'm going to go through 7 categories of tools, and as you can see, you'll be able to keep track of where we are with the 1 out of 7 there. And I'm going to name all the tools, and if you need links or anything like that afterwards, just let me know. The first thing I look for in a tool is a tool that's kind of like an air conditioner. When it works, you don't really notice it, it's just working, and the room temperature is nice and cool, and you're comfortable. But when it's not working, it's super obvious, or when it's missing, you really notice that it's gone, just like an air conditioner. So what I realized was when I was preparing for this talk was that actually a lot of the tools that I use are plugins. You just install them in your browser and they're just working in the background, and they become a layer on top of your normal process that you might be doing. And so I'm sure, who's heard of the Moz bar? Most people here probably. So you're probably like, I'm going to know all these tools, and that's not true. I'm starting with an easy one. But what I recommend for anybody that's not using the Moz bar, you can use this for free, and it'll still give you domain authority, is to just turn it on. And as you're doing your research for content or competitors, or you're just searching stuff in Google on your own, it's going to slowly train you to notice sites that have authority, and that might be ranking, versus sites that don't have authority that might still be ranking. And so you'll just start to get, do you see something?
Sorry, is this on purpose? That's us.
Oh, you know what's funny about that?
You hate us?
No, I think that's personalized. It's an aside story, but I was on that the other day.
What's the search query?
Customer segmentation.
Everybody searches it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. So there's another plugin that I really like, and a lot of these tools that I'm going to talk about are free or very cheap, because I really like free tools. I hate paying for super expensive tools, especially when I can get things that work for free. And so let's use your URL as an example here. So the second plugin is just I'm not even sure how to say this, the AEMA redirect checker plugin. It's this one here. Is this your site? Let's try Shopify. So here's the plugin here. And again, it's not a super fancy tool. It's just going to show you every page you visit, the status code. And the biggest use of this tool is if you land on a page or on a website where the page design looks like it's a 404, it says not found, or it literally says 404, but you still see a different status code. That's actually a really big issue that you want to fix. You want to talk to your web developer about that. But this is great if you land on a page and you notice it goes through like 4 or 5 redirects, or something technical is awry. It'll just alert you to that. And again, I love that because it's just happening right in the background. The third one is called Broken Link Checker. Why don't I run it on this page, actually? And this is just a very easy Chrome plugin that if you're browsing a site, and I'm going to show you a use case for this in a moment, it will automatically tell you how many links might be broken on that page. And so that's actually how I got this link here on a website called upcity.com. I was browsing lists of SEO podcasts, and I said, there's 20 of them here listed. Maybe some of these are broken, and if they are, I could reach out to them and say, hey, you're linking to a podcast that doesn't exist anymore. Why don't you link to mine instead? And that's exactly what happened. I ran that tool, number 20 was broken. I said, okay, great. I put together the little description, and I reached out and emailed them and landed an easy link like this. And by the way, this is not about the link necessarily. This post, at least at the time, ranked number 1 in Google for SEO podcasts. And so I saw that as a way to get visibility through a third-party site. Has anyone heard of Keywords Everywhere?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, darn. I was hoping less people have heard of it. This is by far my newest favorite tool that's come out in the last year, and it's free. So I'll just turn it on here. So for those of you that haven't seen Keywords Everywhere, you're going to be really amazed at this. It's going to pull in volume for you. Literally, it's going to give you keyword data everywhere. And this plugin has saved me so much time and given me so many great content ideas that I'll get into a little bit later. But simply for now, if you install this and turn it on, you're going to get keyword data right in Google. You're going to see this stuff over here. You're going to see keyword data in Google Analytics, in Search Console, in Moz. It's a really, really great tool. And just a quick disclaimer, this volume here that I'm showing you is global, but you can go into settings and change that for US or particular country. Again, it's about understanding the data that you're looking at. Okay, so, yes?
Are you going to go into that in more detail later?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so that's plugins. That's category number one. These are tools that just make my job easier because they're just there running in the background, and that's what I love about them. Okay, second category. Has anybody, who here is like a consultant or maybe works for other companies, a few people, or even if you're internal or in-house, who here has ever started working with a new company or for a new website, and you get in there and you're like, oh my goodness, what did these people do to this website? Like, probably not a single person in here has not encountered that. Like, there's broken pages, everything's a mess about it. And I kind of think that's kind of like this Franken-car here. It's just, you look at it and you're like, what did you do? Or even worse, it might be like that Franken house, or even better yet, like this guy riding a weird Franken bicycle. But throughout the years, I've come across a few tools that really, really help get a very fast jump start on solving these issues, like when you first start working with a new company. I'm going to close some tabs here. That's the challenge of doing a live demo. Okay, TechTarget people, are you ready? So the first tool is SEMrush, and it's going to be a report called the subdomains report within SEMrush. Now, I have not run this on TechTarget.com, so I have no idea what I'm going to find. But the reason I run this tool, it's one of the first things I do with every brand new client or every new site I work on. This tool is going to reveal every subdomain that SEMrush has discovered for that root domain. And there's a lot of things you can do with that, but let me go ahead and run it on TechTarget and see what we find. Have you ever run this? Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of subdomains.
I know you do, that's why.
Don't embarrass the host.
Definitely not meant for embarrassment. I just know you have a lot of subdomains, because I was looking at your blogs. The reason I have a client that I contacted Don here at TechTarget, because I was here like last fall, to see if he could help. Maybe one of you can help. I won't pitch a link right now, like live on stage. Anyways, a lot of action items can come from this. Even if you have 3 subdomains. Do you have all these registered in Search Console?
Yes.
Yep. And then are they connected in a property set all together?
Yes. Yep.
Good job. See, not embarrassment, you're doing it all correct.
No.
And then with some clients, I've gone in and found subdomains literally that they had no idea even existed because the person that made it was 10 years ago, and they're long gone, and like, of course, they're trying to find a password and figure out how to get in there. But it's a great tool to uncover these things that really there's not another great way to find. If you're not linking to these subdomains internally, you're not going to find it on the crawl, if you don't have all the analytics data. So I just love this report because it's so fast and easy to find that. Okay, the second trick I have for you is a little hack in Google Analytics. So has anyone here worked on a traffic drop scenario where you're checking out a website and it's lost traffic and you're trying to figure out what happened? This hack I love, I'm using it forever, and I've never seen anyone else mention it. But does anyone notice something a little strange about how I have this report set up?
I do. Only because I was just telling somebody about this today.
You do this?
Yes, I do.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is
You
it?
can see your losses by looking at what was high last year, comparing it
Yeah.
to this year, instead of looking at this year compared to last
The
year.
date compares reverse. So it sounds like you do this. I've never seen anybody else share this, but it's a great little hack because when you reverse the dates, it's going to sort by the stuff that was high trafficked. Now, of course, when you do this, it is a hack. So this means this post actually lost 85% of my traffic. So see, I'm the only one I'm going to embarrass here on stage. But I love this hack. So anytime you can do this to compare landing pages, to compare referral sources, traffic sources, and it's a very fast way to find where you're losing the traffic.
I'm not understanding how you got this report. Well,
You just reverse the thing.
The dates are reversed.
oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, normally you'd put the recent date here. Yeah. So you just reverse it to force sort from what used to get the highest traffic. Yeah. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving along. So hopefully those are two little hacks. I mean, obviously I can't get into a lot of technical stuff or, too many things in one single category, but hopefully that solved that. When you encounter a Franken website or a website that's a mess. Okay, third category is video. And I wanted to show this page. Now, I like hip hop music. I like music in general. I like watching videos on YouTube. And I have a couple more serious examples, but this is a guy who, all he does is posts reaction videos. If you're not familiar, he'll listen to an album, and it's literally his first reaction to the album. He does these in his bedroom, and some of his videos have like almost a million views, and he has probably almost 1 million subscribers. And for those of you wondering, slight tangent, but just a little taste of what these videos actually. I just want an excuse to play this because I think this guy's hilarious.
Track 7, I Like You. And I think it's featuring Bad Bunny and J Balvin.
I love this guy.
Okay, what else? Yeah.
The best one ever. Alright, that's enough. Anyway, second example of this. Dr. Axe, big guy in the health space. This is his YouTube channel. You might be thinking, okay, this is health. I have a boring example coming up. But he has over 1 million subscribers, and some of his top videos have gotten over 1 million views. So what I'm doing here is I'm making the case for video being super important, YouTube specifically. And third, I said, okay, what channel might be about a boring topic that I could show an example of? This guy's a plumber, and I think it's like I forget the name of the channel, but he's got just literally videos where he's like fixing a toilet or a broken pipe that have 6 figures of views. And again, I'm just making the point of how prominent and important YouTube specifically is. So the first tool I want to show you is a tool called vidIQ. So it's a tool, and it's also another Chrome plugin. Anyone here investing in video or creating video for content? Not many? Okay, I'm going to move quickly through the video part. The internal tool here is great. You can do keyword research for YouTube. So if you're starting with paleo diet, it's going to suggest other paleo or related keywords that might have YouTube opportunity. And then the plugin itself actually gives you data as you're browsing YouTube. So for anyone of you do get into video, here's a strategy I recommend. Let's say you wanted to create a paleo diet for beginners YouTube video, and you wanted that to rank high in YouTube and to show up prominently in the recommended area. What you would do is you'd search that in YouTube, you'd find one of the top results, and then vidIQ, this plugin, will actually show all of the tags and a lot of data, like it'll show where the video has been shared on social networks. So there's a lot of things you can do with this tool, but primarily I want to show you the video tags, because what this is showing you is what they've tagged in that video. And so part of the strategy in YouTube is to actually create a similar video or a video that would play well after that video, because then you're going to get recommended here. And when you do that, you're going to take all the tags that they're using and plug them into your video, because tags are like an early ranking factor for a new video on YouTube. So a quick little strategy for you there. Okay, again, I'm going to move fast through YouTube. But if you are investing in YouTube videos or video, the biggest ranking factor in YouTube is something called watch time. And watch time is simply the raw amount of minutes that somebody has stayed on YouTube because of your channel. So, if you have a video that's an hour and they watch 10 minutes, or if you have a 10-minute video and they watch 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes of watch time. And the best way to optimize for this is to go into your YouTube audience retention report. And I will disclaim that this report can be kind of a little depressing when you go in here. What this report is showing you is the the drop-off or the engagement. You've probably seen this in Wistia, if you use that, or other engagement metric tools. And so this is quite common. It's showing that, in the first 30 seconds or so, 69% of people have dropped off the video. But this is what you want to optimize for if you're creating video within YouTube, because that's going to make it rank better, and it's also just going to keep more people in the video, and that's going to add to your watch time. So it's a great analytics feature right within YouTube that a lot of people don't really realize that it's there. Okay, the next one's a very simple report, and when I show it to you, you're going to be like, okay, that's very obvious. I should turn off that tab suspender. But again, if you're investing in video, this is a great strategy. And I actually got this from a guy by the name of Ross Hudgens at CH Media. So if you create a YouTube video and you want to rank well in YouTube, again, it's about driving up watch time of that video. And so one way to actually do that is to go into your most trafficked content in Search Console and then create videos and embed those YouTube videos in that content itself. Because you already are getting eyeballs on this content. So for example, I've got like 2,000 clicks on this. I know it's not a lot in the grand scheme of things. I have clients that are obviously, a lot more clicks than that. But you're leveraging the existing eyeballs that you have. You're making that content better by adding video to it. And then because people are going to watch that video, that's going to drive up the rankings of the video in YouTube. And so that's a really, really great strategy to leverage if you're just starting out in video or YouTube. And then finally, the last tool is a general keyword research tool, but there's some great YouTube features in here. It's called Keyword Keg, and this is by the people that make the Keywords Everywhere plugin. And I just want to call out a few filters that you can use in this. So it is a search adjust tool, but it does pull in the API for YouTube, and it also allows you to filter for video listings. So here's my example. I have a piece of content about meta descriptions. If I wanted to create a video about meta descriptions and see if there's opportunity around that, so I can filter for the YouTube API, this is what people are typing into YouTube. The search volume still is from Google, but it's still probably a relative search volume. And then my strategy would be to say, well, where is there a video not ranking in Google? Because if there's a video created, then Google might rank that video. So it's a gap, right, where there's no video, and if you add the video, you would be the one to rank. And so that filter is here. If you just do video listings, no. So it's a great tool. There's a lot you can dig into, but that's something that I would use it for video. Okay, so make this guy proud and do good video strategy. Okay, the fourth one, there's some tools that they might seem simple, but they might just be being used in the wrong way. Like, I'm sure this is a great iron, but it's not supposed to be used for this purpose, obviously. And I find a lot of tools are like that, and I love tools that make the work that I do look good. It kind of impresses clients. So the first example of that is Answer the Public. Everyone use Answer the Public? So again, I'm sure you've heard of this tool, but the best, who's used this tool and said, well, it wasn't like, it's fancy, but it's not super useful. Like, what am I getting out of here that I'm not getting out of keywordtool.io or Keyword Keg or something else? The best use of this tool that I found is when I'm sitting in a room with a client and they don't know much about SEO or SEO tools, and I pull up this tool and I run it through. The reaction I get every single time is like, oh my goodness, wow, you're amazing. And it's like, I didn't do anything. This tool is just fancy looking, and it's just search adjust data, but it really impresses clients. And of course, after that, you want to move to something that's more in depth. But this is a tool I would suggest for that purpose. Like, if you're trying to win over a client or maybe somebody in-house, this tool is a great way to do that. And I have a client that calls it the Death Star. This is, I blocked out the website names here, but this is SEMrush's keyword gap tool. And again, it's not a great tool for like me taking action on anything. There's really nothing more to it than just a little overlap. But I was sitting with this client. It was like one of the first meetings I ever had with him. And I was trying to do everything to get them to even understand the power of SEO and like why it was so important. It's kind of a more old school company. And so I was like showing them search volume. I was showing them their competitors ranking in Google. I was showing them like results from other clients. Like, nothing was working. And then I pulled up this report, just sort of like, on a whim, and everyone in the room instantly realized how far behind they were in terms of organic search and SEO. So again, not like a great strategic tool for me, but a great tool to use to help motivate people, because it just shows them visually if they're behind. This one I saw in the process of researching, kind of looks like an eyeball. Anyone want to take a guess what the two websites are I'm comparing here? Any guesses? They're in the retail space.
eBay and Amazon.
Very close, it's Walmart and Amazon. So Amazon's on the left, Walmart is doing poorly on the right. Okay, so again, not really unique or amazing tools, but used in the right way, they can be very effective. Okay, the fifth category. How are we doing on time, by the way? What's my point for the fifth category? Oh, right. Okay. I'm going to get to a quick story in a second. In the last 2 years, I've probably worked on 10 to 15 traffic drop situations, and every single one of them had a UX component. Something was confusing about the website. My favorite one up here, by the way, is the one on the bottom right. Is that real? So this is just to say that I want to share some tools that help you understand UX weaknesses about your website a little bit better. I did a podcast episode almost exactly a year ago that had to do with this email. It was a solo episode. I don't do many solo episodes. Usually they're interviews. But I wanted to tell a story about this email, and I'll share that quickly now. Basically, as you can see, this was a client I had just worked with. I had done like a technical audit and some keyword research and basically helped them out. And I wake up to this on a Monday morning and he's emailing me like, hey, Dan, you just helped us with SEO. Our traffic's down. Basically he's saying in a very nice way, did you mess up our traffic? The short answer to that is that I realized I determined that I did not mess up their traffic, but this led me down a bit of a rabbit hole researching what happened to their traffic. And so I was like looking at, did they do bad link building in the past? Were they keyword stuffing? Were they doing like any of these typical things? Was their content low quality? Their content was actually very, very high quality. And I couldn't figure it out. And then finally I landed on a post by a guy named Glenn Gabe. He's very well known in the SEO space. And he wrote about this update that he named called the Phantom Update that happened in early 2017. And a lot of this update had to do with what Google would call like distracting content, supplementary content or ads that distracts people away from the main content. And so when I found this and I lined up the date with the date of the client's traffic drop, and then I went back and I did a second look at their blog, I noticed that their blog, it had blog posts, but then to the right, it had very large images of faces of the people that were giving webinars having to do with their company. But those images had nothing to do with the content that was actually like in the blog post itself. And so that and a few other UX things that were not very optimal about that site, I think led to their traffic decline. And so from that point forward, like I said, I've reviewed 10 or 15 sites that all had UX issues that led to traffic drops. And the first tool, again, I like simple things. You might be wondering, where the super fancy technical tools are, and there's going to be a few of those. But one thing I would recommend to everyone, whether it's your TechTarget sites or any sites that you work with your clients, is to just go to a blog post and zoom out. It sounds super simple, but this is an image of Mashable. Who recognizes that as Mashable? A few people. I don't know if you all saw, there was an article that came out 5 or 6 months ago. They got hit with the traffic drop. And it was funny, they interviewed the owners or founders or whatever, and they were like, oh, we're going to fix it with SEO. We're going to post high quality content. And I went to Mashable.com, and this actually screenshots from today, so they haven't fixed anything. And I took one look at it, and what looks bigger, the stuff on the right or the actual content? When you're zooming, this is zoomed out 25%, by the way. And so it's a rhetorical question, but all the stuff on the right is much bigger than their actual content. And so that's a big problem. So you could fix technical issues, you could fix low quality content, you could clean up old backlinks, but if you have these UX issues on your site, you're never gonna really obtain the rankings that you should. And one page I looked at, they literally had 26 boxes of these irrelevant links all the way down the side. And it was crazy. So that's number one. Number two is I recommend using the web dev tools. And let me get to that example. No one here's from HubSpot, right? Why did everyone laugh? Because you know I'm about to make fun of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do have to note a positive about HubSpot. Their design's great. I find the design very pleasant. However, not all their content is that great. And one tool that I use all of the time to take away the bias that a pretty design can give you is the web developer tool. And if you just simply shut off CSS, those are too big.
Is that the web developer tool in Chrome?
Yeah.
When you go up and press, what is it?
Yeah, there's the tool up there. It's a gear.
Oh,
And
okay.
they just do disable all styles.
Okay.
And so what it does is it shows you the content with the design taken away. And again, it seems simple, but what you should do if you're trying to assess if something is good content or low quality content is take away your design bias and do this, look at it as plain text and even read it aloud. And I picked this post because I think this post is okay, but when I'm reading the first sentence, for most sales positions, base salary is a must. It's not that great as a piece of content. And I don't know about you, but for me, the design really sort of impacts how I think about the content. And so just to simply shut off the CSS, I find can take away that bias. Anyone heard of Funkify?
No.
No? Okay. So this is the Art of Manliness. I've worked with him on and off. It's a funny name. It's actually a great website with good content. So is anyone in here colorblind? No? I'm the only one? So I was working with him for 6 months, and I had no idea there were hyperlinks in his content. And actually, 10% of men are colorblind. So I went to him and I said, Brett, you've got links that I and 10% of your audience can't even see. And I knew because I'm colorblind, and he since went and underlined them. But this plugin, Funkify, this is one thing this plugin does, but it's basically accessibility and UX tools. And so you can simulate somebody that might have dyslexia or that has actually motor skill issues, and colorblindness is one of them. And so just demonstrate that. Basically, if you hit start, you can select, one of the most common ones is the red-green. And I don't even know what it changed because I can't see those links anyways. Did it make these more prominent or something?
Made them a different color.
Yeah, it made a different color.
Yeah, darker.
Yeah. So I can see those now, but when it's off, I can't see them. So I don't know if that's reversed, but basically the point is you should test that, because if you're not colorblind, you might not realize you're sort of making your website harder for 10% of the male or less of the female population to actually see your links or see some of the design and content. Okay. The seventh category is probably the most advanced. We're getting to that. Working up to it. I'm showing this quickly a little bit about myself and how I work. This is not me, right? So I wanted to Google successful man. So when I think of successful man, it's some guy in a suit. He probably is proactive about doing work. He keeps checklists. He sets goals. All these things that somebody that's successful should do. Well, that's not me. This is probably more like me. Wait for this GIF to start over. I'm this guy lying on the couch, just relaxing. I mean, there's something. Is that camera still running? If there's something to react to, I'm great. Like that guy on the couch. I need something to react to. Like, I'm not just gonna proactively, seek out something. And so this sixth category of tools is, and I think it's just one example, but it's an example of how you can set up an environment. So if you are a more reactive type of marketer or type of person in general, you can set yourself up for success that way. So I'm sure you've all used Harrow and heard of Harrow. And normally you have to pay for it if you wanted to send you need a little help with that button. Sorry. This is just a little hack. Some of you might know about this, but basically, if you don't want to pay for Harrow, again, if you're cheap like me and you want to still leverage Harrow more effectively, you can just set up a simple filter. So this is a real filter that I have for a client in the sales space. And at least 1 or 2 times a day, I get a Harrow that has some opportunity for them, and they've gotten links and promotion off of that. In fact, this is an example of one link that I received on American Express. You can see I can see that anchor text there, the one that says Evolving SEO. Now this is interesting too, because the link's great. I mean, it's domain authority 90, and if you're a true SEO, you'll celebrate over getting a domain authority 90 link from something as easy as replying to a Harrow. Again, I like to react to things. But what I find even more valuable to get a link for this, if it's you or your client, is now I put the American Express logo on my website, where I say, has appeared on, the Next Web and Moz and American Express. So you can leverage something like that to show sort of a brand, notability. Okay, the 7th category is content. What do I have next? Okay, so now I'm going to show, this is going to be like probably the biggest part of the presentation and probably the most advanced stuff. Content's really been my pillar strategy of achieving SEO success. Really, I mean, pretty much always, but most especially in the last 4 or 5 years. It's helped, lead to results like this, for example. This is blog traffic of a site that I worked with for 12 months. As you can see, as you probably know, SEO takes a little while to get started, but hitting month 7, 8, 9, we really started to see good growth. Or this is another blog of a client that I work with. Again, takes a little while for things to pick up. And then this is an example of just one piece of content, and I kind of have some of the timeline in there in the example as well. So that's why I want to spend most of the presentation on content. Just the first few things about before I share the actual tools. I think it's important to kind of describe my mindset when I approach content and SEO together. The first one is 80-20. And what I mean by that is when you realize that only a handful of your posts are going to drive most of the traffic, it starts to really change how you might strategize and think about planning for content. It becomes much less about volume of content and way more about going after those top 10 or 20% pillar posts that are going to pull and drive the bulk of your traffic for your site, and really they're going to help the other stuff rank better. And that's a whole other thing I could get into, but I think when you shift your strategy away from like thinking that all of your content needs to be a home run and really focusing on finding those few gems that are really going to drive the most of the traffic, that's important to the tools I'm going to show. Also, since I'm an SEO and that's where I'm driving all the traffic from, I spend a lot of time looking for opportunities that have ranking gaps. And so there's 3 main areas, and we could go into more detail on this, but generally what I'm looking for is a keyword or a topic that has a relevance gap, an authority gap, or a quality gap. And if you talk to anyone at Google, they're going to say relevance is their #1 factor. It's not a ranking factor, but they want to rank something that's relevant. So if you are researching topics and you find a keyword where literally there's no results answering that question, even if it's like a more long tail thing that has 20 searches a month, that's a great opportunity to go after. And then when you couple that with volume, that's where things really start to take off. And this might seem simple, and there are more nuances and details which I'll get into, but this has been my pillar strategy for growing all that traffic. And what I recommend is instead of looking at search volume, which can be misleading, because the average blog post ranks for like 1,000 keywords, is to use SEMrush. And if you can find an existing piece of content that targets the keyword you want to go after, you can get the traffic estimate instead. And that's a way more realistic number to go for than just search volume.
Wait, what's the difference between those two?
So search volume is like, let's say paleo diet is my keyword. That might have 1,000 searches a month, but the piece of content ranking #1 in Google for that could have 5,000 visits a month because of all the long tail, because it's ranking for dozens or hundreds of thousands of keywords. So that's how I've planned content for all my clients, and it's worked really well because if you go by search volume and sort, that's often not the same as sorting by the traffic potential.
And it really works for very niche, so I work with small manufacturers, very niche kinds of things, and that's been my most successful thing is, we did this one, so your eyes glaze over when you're writing it, spacer beads and adhesives for bond line thickness, blah, blah, blah. Wrote that, and it's just been every month, the traffic keeps going up. I've done nothing to it.
Yep.
And it just keeps going up. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that, by the way, is the focus of my strategy too. Like, again, I'm the guy on the couch I want to put, it sounds lazy, but I want to put the least amount of effort and get the most results, and that's 80-20. I don't do any link building or much promotion for my clients' content. I just want to post it and have people find it. And I know it's like, oh, it's not just build it and they will come. Well, actually, it is in Google.
Well, so that brings up a really good point, because that's what I've noticed, and I thought, so I read all this stuff about linking, and I don't do any linking, and I just keep writing all this, I call it niche content, and it just keeps getting more and more traffic, and did I figure out some secret that I shouldn't tell anybody, or,
Yeah,
I don't do any linking.
Yeah, it's funny, it's not a secret, but link building is such a rhetoric in SEO that everyone thinks you need to do it, and I only think link building is necessary in a very strategic or very unique situations. One of those being when you have a receptive outreach audience. So there's audiences that they don't like being emailed. I had a client, and I learned this the hard way, I had a client build a ultimate guide to electric bicycles. And I emailed this hockey player in Canada who is a proponent of green transportation. and it's a piece of content. And I said, hey, I'd love it. I did the typical outreach thing. We've all done it. I hated doing it, but the client wanted it to happen. I ultimately parted ways with that client. But I reached out and I said, hey, we got this thing. We'd love for you to share it or whatever, the typical thing. And he writes back, he goes, yeah, but are you selling electric bikes? He was kind of agitated that I emailed him. So that's not a receptive audience, right? Don't email an NHL hockey player to link to your green electric bike article. But there are audiences that are more receptive to that, but it's not something I do a lot of. So, you're not doing anything wrong. That's one way to get results.
And if I could ask, where do you get traffic potentials? Is that an SEMrush thing?
SEMrush.
I'm unfamiliar with that.
I'll show that very quickly. I think I lost a few of my tabs, that's okay. Let's do it on TechTarget, shall we? So this is a great example. So you're ranking #1. So I'm working with a company that we might be going after that keyword, so look out.
No, you look up.
I don't know. I see some issues. I'm just kidding. Okay, so if you enter that exact URL in SEMrush, this is the traffic estimate. And so to show that report, it's called the URL report. You just go in there. This is not much different than your search analytics report, except it's public SEMrush data. And they're tracking rankings on SERPs that have a good volume. And they're just using probably a click-through rate score or something, or curve, to estimate how much traffic you're getting for each keyword based upon where you rank. And what I've noticed is, so here's the mobile average. It's 2,500 a month. Desktop average. And then you can go to the mobile, which might be about the same at 2,100. And if you add those together, it's about almost 5,000 visits a month. Yet, if you were to just look at that keyword, you'd say, okay, 14,000, if I rank number 1, even, 10% click-through rate or whatever, like, that still seems like a high number, but when you factor in all of the long-tail keywords, that's where you get that traffic number. And what I usually see is the SEMrush number, even desktop and mobile added together, is a little bit low. So you can even round up a little bit more. I'd say even if you go in your analytics, you might see 5,000 or 6,000 or a little bit more visits a month, just from Google US. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's what I'm doing instead of search volume.
And one other question, Moz doesn't offer a similar metric?
No. I think they've tried to show something, but still it's more on the end of search volume rather than traffic potential. So again, I just want to urge everyone, low volume's okay. I had a client like 5 years ago that I gave them a topic that had 10 searches a month at the time. It was a trending topic, but we looked back a year later after we posted the content, and they were getting like 1,000 visits a month or a couple thousand visits a month or something. And if we had steered away from this 10 searches a month keyword, we wouldn't have landed on that opportunity. Okay, so the first report I want to share is in SEMrush, and it's called the Pages Report. Now, if we circle back to where I started the presentation, the story about Noah Kagan and the tacos and how he gave me 2 days to find something, this is the report that I used. And it was in that situation where I was forced to find a fast answer that I kind of landed on this report. And I hope I kept it open here. I think I did. Now, as I mentioned in the slides here, this report works well if you haven't done a lot of content yet. If you can find a competitor that has some weakness, maybe they have bad design, maybe you know they're doing bad link building, maybe they have a low domain authority, maybe their content sucks, like whatever it is, they have some kind of weakness. And you want to find a competitor that is currently driving traffic from their blog, because if they're not, this isn't going to work. And the idea here is to say, okay, we're starting out on content. We're going to find a competitor that has a lot of content, that's getting traffic, but we know we can beat them. So basically, let me just show you the example here of Paleo Hack. You're basically stealing their not stealing their content, but what's going on here? This is the point in the presentation where I apologize for having only gotten 5 hours sleep last night. Okay, go back to Pages. So, I'm a new, maybe paleo website. I don't have a lot of content. Maybe I've done some other stuff, or maybe I've done some content, so I've got a decent domain authority. I know I've got high quality writers. Maybe, and I'm not saying Paleo Hack has something wrong with their site, but maybe they're slipping, or they're not paying attention, or whatever's happening. This is their content that's driving the most traffic to their site. And you can go one by one and basically right click on the keywords link here, and I can say, oh, okay, apple cider vinegar drink. That one post is getting over 20,000 visits a month on desktop alone. So if you dive into that keyword and you realize that you could outrank them or start to take away some of that, that's a huge amount of traffic to start to go after. And if you are a super young or low authority site, scroll down a little and dig down into stuff that might be a little lower volume, which might be a little less competition. It was this report that I ran on some competitors of sumo.com, where I found content that they had published. They were getting like 4,000 visits a month, but it was old, it was low quality, it was low domain authority, and I was working sumo.com at that time, I think had a domain authority of 60 or something, so I knew they could easily rank for stuff. Picked out 4 or 5 topics, and those 4 or 5 topics drove most of that traffic growth. And then there was other content obviously below that. One note about what I call a content competitor, because there's a nuance there to that. Your competitor in content is not necessarily your business competitor. So, if you're a paleo website, maybe you want to look to a website that happens to talk about some paleo stuff, but they're not necessarily a direct business competitor. Because oftentimes if you are, let's say you're a B2B business, sometimes your content competitor is entrepreneur.com, or it's something that might be a little more of a bigger publisher. So that's That's probably the hardest part about this process, is finding that site to plug in, but once you do, it really uncovers some good stuff. Okay, the next two sets of tools. So has anyone ever started working with a new company or a new content area, and it's around a topic like you have no clue about? I mean, I'm sure that's happened to all of us. That happens to me a lot. And in fact, just this week I had to start working for a new client in the space of liens. I don't know about you, but like, I didn't even know what a lien was until I talked to them the first time on the phone. And I run into this a lot, you know, if working in a weird industrial space or something medical or law. The challenge here is not necessarily an SEO challenge per se. The challenge is just wrapping your head around that new topic. So I have two methods of doing this very quickly. One is the Moz Keyword Explorer. And quick side note, in my bio in this, it does mention this was the tool that I gave Rand from Moz some feedback on that he wrote about in his recent book. And I'm not sure exactly what I was going to say about that. I just was going to mention that this was the tool. I did give him, what I did try to highlight when I talked to him was this feature was a little bit buried. And I said, Rand, you got to make this more prominent. Like, this is one of the big value adds in this tool. And I'm glad he took that advice and listened to it, because I literally use this tool multiple times a week. And so once you go into the Keyword Explorer, you're going to land in a keyword overview part. But what you want to do is go to keyword suggestions and start with a known broad topic. So I know lien, like that's all I know. Is a new client, they deal with liens. That's all I know so far. So you plug in that seed topic, and then the trick here is to play with the filters. So I want this tool to do the work for me. Like again, I want this to happen quickly and with as little effort as possible. So the first filter you can try is based upon closely related topics. Now what this is doing is it's giving you the unknown thing. So I don't know what a security interest is, but now I know that that exists. I don't know what a purchaser or a lender or a tax lien or any of these things are, but now I've got my whole broad list of broad topics, and it's a great starting point, and I can go dive into these more specifically. There's a few other filters you could try, like based on broadly related topics and synonyms. That will get a similar result. And another one that can be interesting sometimes is related to keywords with similar result pages. So it depends upon the topic you put in there and the space. You got to try each one of those three. But usually one of those three will land you in these unknown topic areas. And the other tool I love for that is BuzzSumo. Who here uses BuzzSumo? Anybody? So a few people. It's most known for finding what's most shared on social media, but this tool is awesome as well. It's called the Question Analyzer. Now what this tool does is they've crawled millions of Q&A websites or forum websites, and they pull in all the questions that have the word lien in it. But beyond that, what they do is they pull in all the questions that have co-occurring keywords in them. So you got lien holder, you got vehicle, mechanics lien, so it's slightly different results than Moz, but it's the same idea. Like, I didn't know that mechanics lien even existed. Now I know. So not only are you finding these broad topics, but if you have some extra help or you've got somebody that can spend a few hours a week maybe doing this, these are great questions to go in and answer. Right? If you want to do something that's really, that's free, it just takes some elbow grease, takes some extra time. This tool is amazing for uncovering these opportunities. In fact, I spent 2 hours on a random Friday night. I typed podcasting into here, and I went and answered a whole bunch of podcasting questions in Quora based upon this tool. And then like a week later, I went back and I had 2,000 impressions on all those answers in Quora. Again, we talked about not having to do link building. I love Quora because it does the promotion for you. You answer the question, it notifies people that are following that question, and also Quora threads rank in Google. So I just love that natural discoverability.
That's if you see something ranking for, if you see Quora ranking for something, you know there's a gap there. That's an opportunity to write.
Bill, you're stealing my one of my.
Sorry.
Just kidding. We'll get to that. All right. So the next one is some hacks that I like to use in Google Search Suggest. And again, this is coupled with the Keywords Everywhere plugin. But this works great if you can write about products, like maybe your review website, like the Wirecutter, or maybe even sell products, and you can talk about related products. It's just a simple hack that not a lot of people realize, but if you think of something like product won't, or like camera won't, how's the camera doing, by the way? It stopped? You should see search volume here with keywords everywhere, and I'm not. So imagine seeing search volume there as well. This is a great hack because if you can do content marketing around products, maybe you're even an affiliate, you're promoting these products and you're making an affiliate commission, this is a great psychological type of keyword to go after because you're talking about something people are frustrated with, a problem that they're having. So if you do something like product won't, product can't, product doesn't, anything with the apostrophe T, these are some great ideas, and couple that with looking for the relevance gaps or the authority gaps, and etc. It's just a great hack that I love, and I wish the Keywords Everywhere plugin was working, but it's not. So on the right here, I've recommended that the folks at Keywords Everywhere add this to their tool. See all these keyword suggestions with volumes and stuff here? This is coming from something a little new that's been happening in Google. So when you click on a result and then go back to Google, this box pops open here. And I said to them, you should pull all these in with volume because that's a lot of extra keyword data. So this next tip is a strategy for anybody that has a lot of content. So TechTarget people, here's the strategy. It's a little bit of a hack. You do a site search and then topic. So whatever you care about, sales or marketing or IT or whatever it is, grab all the keywords that are showing up in this tool and run your rankings on them and make sure you are ranking for them or you have content to address those. Because these people also search for keywords are the keywords that people are going to search next because Google's prompting them to, or they already are on their own. So if somebody is searching something around iPhone and the Wirecutter is ranking, but they don't have content to address the next searches in that searcher's journey, they're missing out. And it's content you can probably more easily rank for if you already have content around that topic already. So I haven't been able to put this in practice a whole lot. It's like a brand new thing, but it's something I'm super excited about trying. Okay, now we're getting to Quora. This is one of my favorite tricks with SEMrush. Before I show the example, so I don't know if you've ever done like keyword research and you're seeing things rank in Google where you're like, it's not the best result. And quite often that could be like a forum or Quora.com or SlideShare, something funny.
There's one site that we're very angry about. It's not good, and it just keeps, we're fighting with them.
Oh, right. Yeah. I get a lot of those too. Dr. Axe is one of those for one of my clients. That's our mission, that's our sole mission, is to just beat Dr. Axe. That sounded bad. That's not what I meant. In the SERPs. If you see Quora or SlideShare or Pinterest and anything that's a user-generated content site ranking in Google, it's probably because Google doesn't have much better to rank. And so they're just ranking something relevant, but if they had an actual piece of content, they might prefer to rank that more. And so you can use SEMrush to actually find these opportunities proactively. And it's simple going to just the main organic report. You enter the UGC site, so in this case Quora.com. And then you can play around the filters, but a good starting point is a keyword or a topic, so in this case podcast. And then I want to say, SEMrush, show me where Quora ranks positions 1 through 5 in Google with any keyword that has the word podcast. Because if I want to create podcast content, I can probably, if I have a decent authority and I do a pretty good job of the content, I could probably at least take that Quora spot. I might not hit number 1, but these are instantly some great opportunities, and you can sort these by volume. You can also filter by difficulty. this goes back to knowing the metrics. I've never seen a keyword difficulty metric of any tool, Moz, SEMrush, Majestic, if they even have one, that's at all super accurate. It's like in the ballpark, right? Like at 80 keyword difficulty is like, all right, that's pretty challenging. But the difference between an 80 and a 78 is nothing, right? There's like almost no difficulty difference there. But I do find it useful if you just want to like take the most difficult stuff right off the top of your result. So if you have a lower authority site, you really need to find stuff that has an easier opportunity to rank, you can use that as a broad filter in this scenario. Another great example for the B2B space especially is plugging SlideShare into SEMrush. And again, filtering for stuff that ranks positions 1 through 5 around a topic. You do have to be careful in the case of SlideShare because they will rank for a lot of branded stuff or stuff where people have put PPT for PowerPoint. And so I like to pull that out. I want to try to get stuff where there's opportunities that aren't somebody trying to just navigate right to slides. Another tip of this, if you do this and you spot content opportunities, create some slides and put them in the content. Because users are obviously looking for something visual or slide oriented, so you might as well give them that type of content in addition to your text content. And did I do this on TechTarget? No, that's the next one. I didn't run it, but you can also do this for Pinterest. It's great if you're in a more B2C space. You can uncover some really good ideas with Pinterest and that technique. The last one I wanted to show was a technique that I used yesterday. I had to go into Boston to see a client, and it was actually 2 clients, and it was like 8 hours of meetings and being on the train and stuff all day. Right as I was getting on the train, I was checking my email, I had my hotspot on, I was checking my email, and I got an email from a brand new client, and they're like, hey, can you get us 10 topic ideas by the end of the day today? And I'm like, oh crap, I really, really want to please this new client, I want to impress them and deliver, but I'm literally, I have no time. And so on the way home, you've probably all been the tea at some point in here, right? The commute home, the 4:20 train home from South Station in Worcester, I was like sitting like that with like 2 sweaty guys next to me, and like I had no room to do anything. But I had my hotspot on, and with one hand I used this technique to find 10 high quality opportunities in about 20 minutes and sent them to the client, and they were very pleased. And I like to tell that story just to say, like, again, it's, we all think we just have all day to sit around and come up with ideas, but that's the reality sometimes. You need to do stuff fast. And that was with this technique here. And I was running this on TechTarget. So again, this is the keyword gap tool. It used to be domain versus domain, they renamed it. I'll show you the table in a second. But if I run TechTarget versus Sales Hacker, now, if I'm Sales Hacker, this would be my strategy. I would want to find a much bigger site with a lot more content, like TechTarget, but we might overlap a little. And so you start by plugging in the domains and you see, okay, great. If the competitor has a lot more keywords and a lot more traffic, you can dive in further. So then you want to go to table view. And then the whole idea here is to say, okay, if I'm a site that has a lot of content already, it's very hard, like, who's ever tried to go back historically and figure out, okay, I found this keyword, have we written about this before? Like, you can't remember, you gotta do a search or do a site search in Google. It's a big pain, and that takes a lot of time. And again, I wanna save time here, so by using these filters, I can say, okay, let's show where Sales Hacker doesn't even rank on page 5. I want to show where we rank beyond page 5. Because if we rank beyond page 5, we probably don't have content for that keyword, or if we do, it's really bad, and we're not ranking at all. So that's how to eliminate that guesswork of like, oh, did we create this content already? Then what I want to do is take the competitor and say, show me where the competitor ranks on page 1. And that might be a good starting point. And then you might want to do an additional filter that might be something like Again, show me where the keyword difficulty is less than 80. Now, I've not run this report. I don't know what I'm going to find. But the strategy here is to now uncover keywords that the competitor ranks for. And again, hopefully you've identified a content competitor that has some weakness that you think that you can outrank them if you do a better job at content. So here's where TechTarget ranks on page 1 for this stuff, but Sales Hacker doesn't. And if I want to refine this further, because I know Sales Hacker is obviously about sales, I could say, okay, show me only keywords that have the word sales. Or you might do something like cold calling or whatever it is. You should look out for Sales Hacker. I'm going to give this to them. I'm just kidding. But I don't think they could outrank you. You have like a super high domain authority, and theirs is, I think it's around 50. But if they had a bit higher of a domain authority, or like they were just really kicking butt with content, or like doing a lot of promotion to it, this is a super viable strategy for them. And again, there's a couple things with high volume at the top, and it does level off. But for them, actually, if I was working for Sales Hacker, I would recommend some of these topics to them, because they should start going after lower volume stuff. So we covered a lot of categories. I know this talk's went on a bit long, but I hope that gave everyone in the room one new tool or one new tactic or technique to try with a tool. And I have one last quick story about fennel. My wife and I were at Whole Foods, and we were doing our shopping, and there was this guy walking through the aisle. He looked, I don't know if he was a little lost or something, but he was walking through the aisle carrying fennel, and that's it. No shopping cart, he wasn't with anybody. And he walked up to me and my wife and he said, "What do I do with fennel?" And we said, well, you can steep it, or you can put it in a salad, you could like do something medicinal with it. We gave him all of these ideas that he could do that he could use the fennel for. And he seemed really appreciative. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna use it, I'm gonna use fennel." And we parted ways, we do our shopping, and we go to check out. I'm pushing the cart down, and I'm approaching the cashier, and I notice a little piece of fennel just sitting right on like the cashier stand there that he had left. He had walked around Whole Foods with this fennel. We gave him ideas, we told him what to do with it, and he just put it down and left without even buying the fennel. And like, this was weird. I think I even took a picture of it because I thought I might, hey, I'll tell this as a story when I speak sometime, randomly. But the point here is I've given you a lot of tools and ideas and ways to use things. It's a slightly cheesy metaphor. I'm realizing that as I'm saying it out loud for the first time. But don't be like that guy at Whole Foods, okay? I urge everyone to use at least one tool or tactic that I've shared. And with that, we'll do some Q&A.
I'll call on people to help keep order 10.
Sure. You mentioned some frustration with tools at measuring competitiveness, sounded like. Mm-hmm. Are there any you like for that?
No. When I'm looking at ranking competitiveness, it's really a manual thing. So I'm like doing the keyword search, and it's just knowing the gaps. Like I'm just thinking like, what holes are there? Maybe one has a relevance gap, maybe one has a quality gap, maybe one has a domain authority gap, but you're just looking for some of those. I will say that the big hard stop on all that I never approach is if everything ranking is higher domain authority than my client, unless there's a super big relevance gap. You know what I mean? So if there's no relevance gap and everything's higher domain authority, they'll almost never rank for that, because that's just like a hard stop. But if you search for something and you see 3 results that have a domain authority of 20 and you're like a 40, that's an indication that something lower can rank. So that's what I'll use. I'll just look for those types of gaps. Hope that helps. Any other questions?
So is that your first sort? You use Moz to come up with the domain authority?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's about knowing the metric. Domain authority is they're trying to simulate page rank. Mm-hmm. So it's primarily a link-based authority metric, mm-hmm. But in my head, I'm sort of thinking it's just authority in general. Like that's sort of how I view it. Like they're just crawling the web. They're calculating the authority for the links they find and doing some, fancy math to give you a domain authority. And so when you realize there's no difference between 34 and 33, and you're really looking at it in broad strokes, then that's the best use for that metric.
David, you have a question?
Oh, thanks so much. So you talked about SEMrush a lot.
Yeah.
And you talked about Moz a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We made a decision 2 years ago to go with Moz. Did I make a terrible mistake?
No, I think it depends what your needs are. Do you like Moz? Have you found it useful?
Well, so first time out of the gate, we're beginners. We're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Like there's keywords and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's where we are. Yeah.
Moz is good for tracking link metrics and for using the Keyword Explorer for setting up a campaign. They've got some cool tools like a link intersect tool where you can find 2 sites that are being linked to but you're not. So if you want to show up in a list, if you have a podcast, enter 2 podcasts that are similar to yours, and if they're being linked to and you're not, that's probably a list that you could be listed in. So there's some things like that, but there's no tool is really better than the other. They all just do different things, really. And I know that's a slight cop-out of an answer, but it is true. That's definitely what I see with that.
I'd like to change tools when I need fresh ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the story that I told about Noah Kagan and the taco, that was one of the first times I used SEMrush like that, and it definitely helped lead to that idea, that new idea. Any other questions?
Jim, you have a question?
So, you do a lot with podcasts, but obviously your clients do probably a lot of this text writing.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us at all, how different do you have to be? Obviously some subjects, hey, 3 sentences, you've said it all, and you're going to say the same thing that 20 other people have. But, that's a battle, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. How long do you have? This is a really, it takes practice, but it's also intuitive. So I had one client, very big, well-known company. You might have used their plugin at some point. They wanted to go into the knowledge worker space for content. And so this is one example of what you do. When I was researching all their keywords, everything ranking was by a person, like an author or a human being, that when somebody is sitting there searching, how do I be more productive at home? They want a friend almost online that they can relate to. And so this was a scenario where this company wanted to create content that was branded, and it didn't have personality behind it. So an element of that where I've told them they need to rank is you need to be obvious, that there's a human being behind this content that the searcher can connect with. That's one example. But another example is, I think I was searching for how to fix my dryer or something at one point. And you can answer, whatever I searched could be answered in a paragraph, literally. So you don't need a big ultimate blog post for something like that. So the central thing I can align all of that to is search intent. And that could be a whole talk in itself, but I figured that out by analyzing what's currently ranking, in addition to what are the SERP features there. So if you search a keyword and you see images, well, guess what? They probably want visuals. I was researching for the Art of Manliness, beards. You search beards in Google, and there's not a website first, it's all images from Google image search at the top. So it's you gotta put images in your content. If you see videos ranking, you gotta put videos. If you see slides ranking, you might wanna put slides. So, yeah, there's a lot to it. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it's good.
I don't really remember what your question was.
It was like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, over the years, decades actually, I would periodically look at the accuracy of keyword research tools. And to give one of many examples, I think I had a client that maybe had 20% of a fairly large market, both business to consumer and business to business. And you do a search for a relevant phrase, and the tool, which is a very well-known tool, I won't even say, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, and this was a while ago, but a pretty well-known tool that a lot of people use in our industry then would show that it got X amount of traffic, 1,500 calls. Well, this client, with their Google Analytics, showed that they got more than that. And this is saying all of America, there's this many searches.
Yeah.
So, you know, and periodically I do that kind of drill down. Or you go to SEMrush and it says, well, this client's spending X amount of pay-per-click. Well, let's go and see exactly what our client is spending on pay-per-click. You know, I know they don't have to be purely accurate to be useful. And if the inaccuracies are more or less even, great. But I bring that topic up here, I think it pertains to a lot of these tools, especially keyword tools, but others too. And I'm just curious if you've, dug in like that recently. I haven't that recently.
Yeah, I see differences and I choose to ignore them. I think, and I don't know if that's wise or not, but I like to, again, go for broad strokes, number one. But number two is look at everything relative to the tool. So if I'm doing keyword research and I'm using AdWords, US, English, I'm going to stick to that setting and make sure everything relatively is consistent. If I'm using the Keywords Everywhere plugin, which defaults to global, I'm just going to stay on global and get the relative volumes. I've seen the same thing. You post something and you go to search analytics and it has 1,000 impressions, but then AdWords says 750 for search volume. Then you have to realize AdWords is averaged over the last 12 months, so there's some seasonality and so there's definitely differences, but ultimately I don't really fuss too much over them. I like to go for the broad stroke and then go from there. Yeah.
The trick is don't show your client or your boss two different tool numbers, because you can't justify the Moz numbers and the SEMrush numbers. I mean, they're like 40% different in some cases. I reached out to them to try and get reasons why, and they're like ambiguous. I think when you were talking about the analytics versus the tools, I think if it was back then, you probably couldn't get search volume. You were probably looking at traffic, and it was probably more than one search term. And if you dig into the new Google Search Console, you could see like really cool stuff. Like you want to describe like how you don't want to use average position and.
Yeah, you don't want to use it wrong. So the only way I find that metric useful is to look at one keyword and then average position. Because the second you add in more keywords, well, now you're just getting like a super vague average. That's not useful at all. So
Right, if you suddenly start ranking 50th for a bunch of keywords,
right,
you're
going to
going
skew
to
the
your
average.
average.
It'll kill you, even though you're ranking number.
But you might still be getting more traffic.
Yeah.
So I feel I press them on their numbers. They say that their numbers are, they're not absolutely accurate. In absolute terms, they're not accurate. Nobody's numbers are. All these estimates are not accurate. What they are is they're relatively accurate. If you look up your number and you see it's 45,000 and you know that you're actually 100,000, and you look up your competitor and he's 90,000, you can probably safely assume that he's double you. So they're accurate relative to one another. But just assume that the scale is off.
Yeah, if that's the case, no problem. But when you see certain inaccuracies like that, you kind of want to be assured that something like that's true, because if it isn't, then you're making all these decisions based on, if it's a 40% or more variance, well.
They're accurate relative. The exception would be if you're dealing with a very, very small niche or local player, where you could be dealing with a small sample size, small panel, then it could, all bets are off.
Yeah, I think that goes back to just knowing what's behind the metric. So analytics tracks a session when the JavaScript fires, right? When you get a click in Search Console, that's a click. They could have clicked and then closed it before the code fires off. So I think it's just knowing where some of those differences could come from. But I see them all the time. I'm right there with you on that. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
With the new Keywords Everywhere tool with the sidebar,
Yeah.
would those keywords be more for what are people searching next, or what are people searching instead? Like, would you use those more for like a content opportunity to write a follow-up piece of content, or would you use them like, maybe I should be targeting this keyword instead of my content?
Yeah, the first one is probably what I use it for.
Okay.
So mostly what I've seen of the keywords that show up there usually represent a different topic, usually. maybe they could go with that same piece of content, but I think it's Google saying, hey, did you like this? Do you want to read that instead? I think that's what's happening.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you all for coming. I'm a big fan of not wasting food, so please grab another bite on the way out, or dessert, or a drink. Take a sealed can or bottle with you if you want to.